All right, excellent afternoon to all those who are watching me across the states in Nigeria. I'm a little bit excited today, and I'm excited also that I'm back in the studio. And they say creativity is a word often used simply to represent the power of redesigning our world. The aspect of our creativity leads to, will I say, monetization, if you ask me, which I feel is secondary, but often focused upon. But the aspect of developing creativity is the genius of our world. And I must say again, welcome to another interesting edition of Real Talk with Kike. I remain your convener, the chief host, the executive producer, the script writer, name it. My name remains Kike Atanda-Owo, and I think it's important for us to hear what On This Day Industry segment asked for us today. Let's hear it, and when I come back, I'll give my submission about it. Stay with me, I'll be right back. All right. My takeaway from On This Day Industry segment today, for the first time, I think I have maybe a few times where I've disagreed with my On This Day Industry segment because I have another perspective to this story. And for a very long time, we have failed to realize that the foreign countries are one of our biggest enemies. You know, I try to keep it real on this platform. Are we not asking ourselves why they have repatriated Alice Maduke, you know, in Nigeria for that matter, back to our home country to answer questions on mismanagement of funds, on allegations of abuse of public office? The reason is because, you know, they are profiting from the wealth she transferred abroad, and they are using it for the growth of their own economy. So it is only after decades that they will resort to doing it right, when the money and wealth have been lost in value or has been lost in value. So I just pray that we Africans or Africa begin to have sense, for lack of a better word right now. You know, I think that's just my takeaway from On This Day Industry segment. It's time for us to get a quick message from my sponsors, those who have put me on this platform. And when I return, we will be listening to our honorable guests. Please stay with me. I'll be right back. All right, many thanks for staying with us. The Ministry of Arts, Culture and the Creative Economy is at the forefront of Nigeria's drive to transform its creative industry into a global powerhouse. With a strategic partnership with the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, that's the NESG, the ministry is set to develop a robust framework for financing the sector, aiming to contribute significantly to Nigeria's GDP and create 2 million jobs by 2027. As Minister Hannatu Musawa leads this cultural rebirth under the President Tinubu's renewed hope agenda, the stakes are high. On today's episode of Real Talk with Kike, I'm diving into the transformative initiative, you know, shaping Nigeria's creative economy. We'll be speaking with Minister Hannatu Musawa about the Ministry of Arts, Culture and the Creative Economic's recent projects, including the Creative Leap Acceleration Program and the Scrap to Bank initiative. We would explore how these efforts aim to position Nigeria as Africa's creative capital, empower thousands of creatives and women, and contribute significantly to the nation's GDP. We will also discuss the ministry's 8-point plan focusing on skills development, public-private partnerships, and of course, the cultural heritage preservation. Before we delve into real talk with my guest, let's have a profile, and when I return, we'll be hearing a voice. Stay with me. I'll be right back. All right, many thanks for staying with us. Let me use this opportunity to usher in our guest. Welcome to the show, Honorable Minister. It's a pleasure, it's a pleasure, it's a pleasure to finally have you physically in the studio. I know that you have graced this show 4 times. This is the 5th time, and I must use this medium, you know, to thank you. Particularly thank you for your willingness and dedication, you know, towards public service. You are one of the few that I can speak proudly about in the public space, not because I'm saying you, but because I know that you're an experienced woman, and we need women like you to continue to champion or open the platform for other women to come after you. Well done, and I must say thank you so much for being here in the studio today.
Thank you, my sister. It really is an honor and a pleasure to be here live in the audience. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for creating time. So let's just dive straight to the topic at hand, because I know we are a little bit behind schedule. Everybody agrees that Nigeria has talent. We have resources, or resource people, you know, people who are very creative, people who have been asking the questions of how come we haven't monetized our creativity enough for it to be integral source of national revenue for us in our country, Nigeria. So I believe that having you in the studio today, it is important for me to ask you, or to task your office, probably that's the word, in terms of, I know that there will be a lot of incumbent, you know, issues like that from your office when it comes to what is happening from your office to the creative world, especially in the entertainment industry. What roadmap can you say that, you know, you have been able to map out, you know, for those who want to sustain that vision of creativity in this economy that we found ourselves today?
Well, again, thank you for having me. You know, the creative economy is absolutely huge in terms of the potential. We all know that. Up until now, why you see we've not been able to gain the value abound in the creative industry is because proper foundation has never really been put in place to sort of support its growth. When I came in, I realized that we really had to start basically from ground zero because, you know, proper structure was really not in place. For example, the issue of IP. IP is absolutely crucial and essential for you to have a really fortified foundation. The issue of a cultural policy. We had a cultural policy that was completely obsolete. We had one that had been drawn up, but it had been collecting dust. You know what happened to the cultural component part of the ministry was it was always under information, which sort of overshadowed it. So not much was really done to cultivate. And the creative industry, this is the first time a government has put up a ministry that caters specifically to the creative industry. So what I did when I came on, rather than just announce a number of initiatives and programs, I wanted to build that proper foundation. And what I did was I brought in the likes of BCG, McKinsey, EY, some of the best cerebral minds, think tanks in the world, to help me do a proper deep dive, a proper research, data collection, to see how best we can leverage on what we have. People talk about us having a moment. The whole world is so interested in Nigeria because of our content, our talent, and creativity. And we know, and I must say, you know, members within the creative space have been successful in spite of government. Government has done nothing up until now to really give them the proper platform and network. So when I came in, this is really basically what I did. And we came up, we used benchmark countries such as South Korea and some of the countries that have really been able to leverage on their creativity and culture to build huge amounts of growth in so many different vistas. And so we did that. We came up with a fantastic roadmap, 8-point agenda, which I felt if we implement these 8-point agendas and 14 different initiatives under these 8-point agendas, we will activate that particular potential that you're talking about. And, you know, we are delivering IP now in the next 2 weeks. 3 weeks max, we're going to deliver IP. Cultural policy is on its way, straight after the IP policy. And then you look at the issues of infrastructure, the issue of partnerships, the issue of training, the issue of capacity building. So much had to be done. So for me, it was doing the foundational work, trying to put up a strong, fortified base for the industry. Now that we've been able to do that, we can roll out all the different initiatives that will be able to continue to bring growth to the industry.
Fantastic submission, right? And I must say, well done. You know, but we'll come back to that 8-point agenda that you mentioned. But let me first of all say kudos to you for the ongoing renovation of the National Art Theatre. You know, you have mentioned that it's the successful renovation of the National Art Theatre, a significant milestone in our own collective efforts, you know, in terms of the preservation of the essential of our cultural assets, so to speak, especially when it comes to creating new opportunities within the creative industry. So my question now is, what are your positions to national, or let's say theatre practitioners, to, you know, maybe revitalize that area, because there have been a shift and a focus, you know, to the online channels of theater, you know, in terms of production, like Netflix, like Amazon, name it. So for the marketing and promotion of this theater production, what's next? What do you think is the next stage after the renovation of National Theatre?
First of all, I want to talk about, just briefly, the Wole Soyinka Theatre, as you said, the National Theatre, a national edifice, which is part of our identity as a people, right? Which has been completely, up until now, abandoned until the Committee of Bankers came in, a partnership, PPP, between government and this private entity came in, and they did an astronomical job. I have to give kudos to the Committee of Bankers, because what they have done in the Wole Soyinka Theatre not only is going to revitalize that theatre community that you speak of, is going to go a long way in bringing the value that we're looking for in terms of enriching not only the industry, but also cultural and economic expansion, which we have committed to. So for us, is to see how we can replicate what has already been done in the National Theatre. We want to get it up and running. The new GM of the National Theatre, Tola Kerele, has come with a number of fantastic programs that is going to bring sort of traction back into Nigeria, the cultural industry of Nigeria. From once it's been completed, which is going to be completed, I think, in the next couple of weeks, there's going to be programming after programming after programming. Theatre arts has to be brought back to the fore, because no matter what you talk about in terms of you know, the development of arts and culture and creativity, I think theatre is the real base of it. And so, we need to bring theatre back. And we're proposing part of the infrastructure mechanism that we have is to ensure that we have theatres in at least the 6 geopolitical zones, so that we can continue to encourage the locals to also participate.
Fantastic one right there. But I must ask you, can you provide more details on the Memorandum of Understanding, I mean the SLA, between the Ministry of Arts and Culture and the Creative Economy and the Nigerian Economy Summit Group itself, that's the NESG, in terms of the specific goals and strategies being set, to finance and grow this industry? Because regardless of all the things that you've been saying, Echi, finance is quite important, it's necessary.
Absolutely.
So how does the partnership between your ministry and the NESG, align with the ministry broader goals, particularly in terms of the GDP contribution and the job creation for 2027? That's my first question to you. And my second question, because of time, is the fact that you mentioned PPP earlier, and I cannot help but to just touch on it, because for those who are watching us right now, PPP is the public-private partnerships, and I must intertwine it with the infrastructure development, because I feel that it's very essential when it comes to stimulating investment in the creative economy, when it comes to both. How is your ministry facilitating this partnership? What roles do they play, in terms of the overall strategies of this sector? Could you please, share with those who are listening to us right now regarding the success stories of the ongoing projects thus far that I know that I have been keeping up to, but with those who are just watching you right now, give us the highlight of the effectiveness of these partnerships.
So quickly, with NESG, we signed an MOU with NESG that are going to help us to come up with a number of policies. I spoke about IP policy, cultural policy. We're coming up with a creative economy policy and an incentive policy that's going to help the growth of the sector and just basically provide that regulatory and legal framework. So that's what we have with the NESG. When you talk about funding, we quite know that part of the problem that creatives are having is the dearth of funding. I have used a number of mechanisms that I feel will help in terms of that funding. Of course, PPP is one of them. We have signed an MOU with, for example, Big Win, where we have been able to get funding for job creation. We have committed to providing at least 2 million jobs by 2027. So Big Win, the MOU that we have with Big Win to give us funding towards propelling job creation, that is in place, and we have been able to make a number of strides in that respect. And also we have an MOU with Afrexim Bank that is also trying to see how we can add value in terms of this job creation that we're talking about. And I have proposed a vehicle that I'm looking at to see that we get funding to creatives. This vehicle is very important. I have already submitted that to the FEC, and I'm with Federal Executive Council. And hopefully, once we get approval, it is a vehicle that members within the creative industry will be able to get funding. CLAP is an online database that we have. CLAP is also going to help. We launched it about a month and a half ago. And CLAP is also going to help us in terms of the networking members of the creative industry need. Networking for capacity building, for job creation, for funding as well, and for training, and just the different networking that they need that will give them the right information to sort of propel them in the way that they need to go to get that necessary funding. And we continue to talk. Yesterday, I had a breakfast engagement with members of the private conglomerates, really, and I wanted to present to them this roadmap so that for them to see, and I invited them to see that they would be able to look at the areas that they have interest in, especially that really sort of speaks to their own brand. I disclose a number of brands because we have a number of brands which there's not enough time for us to really go into that. And I'm inviting them, local investors, international investors, to see that we do everything we can to ensure that they get the funding. And of course, the infrastructure is also key. There's really no infrastructure to support the industry. Infrastructure, there's another vehicle that I've submitted to the Federal Executive Council. Once we have approval, the infrastructure will be there. Once members of the international community and the business community and the corporate community see that the ministry has, the right modalities in place for business to thrive, you will find that really it will be something that will draw in funding for us to continue to support members in the creative space. All
right, many thanks again for that elaborate submission, and of course for keeping us to speed with all that you've been doing thus far. And I must, like everybody know, they all know that I keep it real on this platform. Yeah, and for me, I know that there's no ease of doing business in this country. No. And enabling business environments and digital transformation is crucial, especially in today's economy. So I must ask you, what measures, is being taken by your ministry in terms of how to ensure that Nigeria's creativity's content, is integrated onto or into the global digital platforms? What role do you see the technology playing in the future of Nigeria's creative economy, and how is the ministry really supporting the innovation in this area? And let me further take the question by asking, because I know that some of the research that I've done and some of your work that I've been able to follow through till date is the fact that at the Switzerland summit in January, Davos, this year, the goals was initiated as a diverse community of business and political leaders in terms of, the activities, the NGOs, the entrepreneurs, the technological content and all of that, that you would be coming together to make sure that you share that mission, that vision to create a driving progress, to achieve all of this in UN's Sustainable Development Goals by 2030 to be precise. Yeah. So you must keep us together. I want you to give us a feel of how that has played out thus far after a few months that this was discussed in Switzerland.
Yeah. One of the things for us, I find that many of the initiatives are very cross-cutting. I'm working closely with the relevant ministries. For example, with IP, we're working closely with the Ministry of Trade and Investment to ensure that we deliver that in the next 2.5 weeks. And of course, we're working closely with Ministry of Digital Innovation and Digital Economy Innovation and Digital Communication Innovation and Digital Economy. Because what we need in order for us to help propel the industry, we need proper internet access. For example, this clap, we cannot be able to reach Nigerians everywhere without internet access. This is what is going to give us the digital tools that will be able to empower creatives in the sector. I'm working together with my brother, Dr. Bosun, to ensure that we close all the lacunas that is required in terms of delivery of that digital access that will also help to enhance the creative industry. Yes, of course, we had a number of discussions in Davos earlier on in the year, but for me, what I found was many of the interested investors that I wanted to bring on wanted to see us as a nation and as an industry come correct. And by that was we needed to put up the mechanisms and the proper measures that would really give a proper foundation, a securitization, so that it would give them the confidence to come and do business in Nigeria. We know what has happened in the past. So, like, for example, the issue of IP is absolutely key. So once we deliver IP in the next 2.5 weeks, I know that many of the investors that we've been speaking to, the Americans, the Saudis, the Qataris, the people from the UAE, will be have much more confidence to come within the space because
and
they
invest in
yes, because they have indicated an interest to invest, but they want to know that there's an enabling environment. And part of what we're also doing is this incentive policy that I spoke about with the NESG to ensure that we give incentives and tax vistas to members within the creative space to come in. We've come up with a creative visa as well. So, you know, little things like this will help to create that enabling environment, but the foundation has to be put in place, the infrastructure. We have started some amazing projects in terms of infrastructure, arenas, we've started issues of cinemas, of museums, all these things. It needs to be in place. The Abuja Creative City, which hopefully is going to be a one-stop shop for the full 49 subsectors. So it's exciting times now that we've had the main driving foundation drivers in place. I think you'll see a lot of investment coming in, and then of course the funding and that enabling environment that we continue to speak about.
All right, many thanks again for that elaborate submission. We'll go on a quick break now, and when we return, the conversation will continue. Stay with me, I'll be right back. This is Real Talk with Kike. All right, glad to know you're still right there with us. In case you just joined the show, today's conversation is about the Ministry of Arts and Culture's goals to elevate Nigeria's creative industries to a top global ranking by 2050 under the ministry's agenda to integrate creative content onto digital platforms and safeguard the nation's rich cultural heritage while boosting the tourism and economic growth. And I have been privileged to have the Honorable Minister herself, Mrs. Hannatu Musawa, with all that she has been providing in terms of the insight on the discussion being asked, a mission to transform the creative economic potential. And we have also been having real talk around critical issues that resonate with a wide audience concerned about the nation's economic diversification and cultural preservation. And I must say many thanks, Honorable Minister Hannatu Musa, with all that you've shared thus far. And I must say well done, because I know that it's a challenging time at the moment in the country, but you're doing pretty well, I must tell you. People say I lack diplomacy. Tell me when I do, take it from me when I say you do really well.
Thank you.
Well done, my sister.
I've taken it.
She's taking our flowers, guys.
Absolutely.
All right, let me use this opportunity to quickly open the phone lines. Remember that you can be part of this conversation by calling the studio number 0811 8888 Again, 0811 888 and it will be showing on your screen right now. And of course, we're streaming live on Facebook, both on Real Talk with Kike and of course on Silverbird platform. Ma'am, you know, you've shared a lot thus far, and I feel that it's pretty much very important for me to touch on the 54th edition of the Arts, Culture and Creative Economy Summit that was recently launched, because I feel that you must bring to fore some of the key takeaways and the outcome from this summit that will shape the future of Nigeria's creative sector. When I say shape the creative sector, in terms of the planning of the national cultural events, unlocking financial resources, you know, what are the immediate steps right now, or the next steps following this discussion at the summit, and the fact that, you know, I must ask, how does the ministry plan to balance the preservation of our cultural heritage with the need for modernization? Because however you look at it, innovation and creative sector work hand in hand right now. There's no how we want to, you know, preserve that cultural angle that we will not touch on the technology side. How do you want to go about that?
I think first of all, you know, I think most of what is needed in order to really fortify and build and add growth and value in the space is general. Okay. The issue of securitization, IP, funding, capacity building, training, the issue of infrastructure. Yeah,
you mentioned training earlier, capacity buildings and the likes.
Those things are general. They're general, and these are what we were able to learn specifically from the benchmark countries that have been able to really unlock the potential and really sort of benefit from it in a way that, you know, the huge overflow that we've seen from South Korea. So it's the same thing, and this is exactly what we're doing. In terms of digitization, I mean, it is a no-brainer that as we want to preserve our cultural heritage, we also have to look at the future. If you see some of the amazing infrastructure projects that we're going to do, every single thing has been done in a very avant-garde and dynamic, with a avant-garde and dynamic vision, where everything is digitized, everything is done in a way for the next generation. Already our archives, the DG NCMM and the DG of Arts and Culture, Mr. Obi Asika, have gone a long way, and of course the DG of National Gallery of Art have gone a long way in starting the process of digitizing these assets. I mean, it is something that we want to do in the ministry throughout. So every single edifice that you see that we're building in terms of building on the infrastructure is going to be woven and married together with digitization. We want to be able to export our culture. We want to be able to import our culture. When I say import, it's about the repatriation of our artifacts. We are going to get our artifacts back. But in order to do that, for me, I think what we have to look at is what is in the best interest of the artifacts. DG NCMM is working on an expedited project whereby we build a storage unit. Okay. Because the artifacts, they come back, we don't have anywhere to keep them. We don't even have a national museum.
Interesting.
In Abuja. So this is what we're working on. And as we're doing that, everything is going to be digitized. Some of the amazing projects that we have, they're so dynamic. They're so forward-thinking. They're literally, everything is virtual reality, AI that we're weaving into it. And of course, keeping our identity and our tradition. So everything is done in an African manner, with an African style, using African architecture. So we are doing what we can to ensure that we preserve our cultural heritage. And part of that is also to see how we use that to do this an initiative that we have, Destination 2030, where we want to leverage on our cultural heritage and on our creativity to reposition Nigeria and change the narrative about Nigeria globally.
Fantastic.
Very soon, Nigeria is going to be everywhere. I promise you.
I'm hoping so. Yes. All right. So, with what you've shared thus far, the only thing that my mind is going to right now that I believe that I need to touch on is the policy frameworks and intellectual property protection. For it, when it comes to intellectual property, I'm so big on it because I feel that the implementation of those policies, needs to be protected, especially those that protect intellectual properties. I feel that quite a number of us in this side of town have not actually, capitalized on it. So what challenges do you think your ministry has encountered in this area? How are you addressing this intellectual property issue, especially when it comes to policy alignment with the global standards? And what benefits can Nigerians, Nigerian creative now expect in terms of the IP protection and revenue generation? I think that another question is the fact that the acceleration program that you earlier mentioned, that is the CLAP, has been described as maybe more than just a program, so to speak. And the little that I have also seen thus far, it's a movement to empower the creative community in Nigeria. Can you share with us maybe a few of this vision behind CLAP and how you see it transforming the creative sector, especially the poverty? I'm trying not to use certain word. Maybe how it's going to contribute to the poverty reduction. Reduction with the unemployment that is affecting us at the moment. What are the opportunities that you think that CLAP will offer or has offered to young creative? How can we leverage on those opportunities to continue to grow personally, apart from our professional life, personally, in terms to add to the Nigerian economy today?
So the good thing with working with an organization, a think tank organization such as NESG, is that they have global standards. So in terms of the IP, what we have done is we have come up with an IP policy that is of global standard. One of the things that's part of the problem that you were talking about that I encountered was I would have loved, as soon as I came in, we would have delivered IP within 2 weeks.
Okay.
But it's not possible, because what you have to do is you have to do proper stakeholder engagement with people across the full spectrum of the creative industry. And it's necessary because they have to have their input. They know the pulse of their own subsector, so they have to have that specific input. So in order to do that, to ensure that we covered everyone together with NESG, it was sort of almost like pulling teeth. And we know the bottleneck of any government in the world. You know, things do not move as fast as you would want to. So it's taken us a year to get this IP policy in place. But even though it's taken us a year, it's been absolutely thorough, and we've been very meticulous. And I think by the time we present the policy for the cultural policy and the IP policy, I think Nigerians, people within the creative space, will find, you know, that we, together with NESG, together with the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, have done a very thorough job. In terms of CLAP, well, you see, and of course, reducing poverty. Part of what I have committed to do is to have an economic expansion with a target of hitting $100 billion to increase the GDP by 2030. Hopefully, some of that will be distilled all over in different sectors in Nigeria that will go towards alleviating some of the challenges, poverty challenges that Nigerians are facing, and also contributing at least 2 million jobs by 2027. A lot of the people that exist within this creative industry are people of a younger demographic, and they are our target audience in terms of job creation. So if you are able to provide at least 2 million jobs, and we are able to get funding beyond that to provide more than that, I think that will go a long way in alleviating some of these challenges. One of the main initiatives that I'm implementing, and I'm actually excited about this one, is called the State Renaissance Project, where we're taking everything that we're doing down to the state level, doing a handshake with the federal government and the state government to use the peculiar and unique peculiarities in the state to ensure that we come up with programs that engage creatives at the very grassroots level. I think that will also go a long way in alleviating, and I think CLAP will do, if we have internet accessibility, I think CLAP is going to help with networking, it's going to help with capacity building, training, job creation, and also job opportunities, and also funding.
All right, many thanks for that. They've been running commentary in my ears, but now we need to manage time. I wish I have time to touch on the scrap to bank, you know, but yes, scrap to bank is something that is also big on my mind. But let me put that aside, because most of your submission today is about partnership, collaboration, and I think that I needed to quickly touch on the collaborative governance with stakeholders engagement thus far, because I feel that many agencies today, or most of the summits that you see today, everybody is talking about partnership. And the private sector is another thing that everybody is tapping into now when it comes to the creatives in terms of the vital for the success of the ministry's initiative thus far. So how are you fostering that collaborative governance, and what has it been thus far for you in terms of the response, you know, from the key stakeholders? In what ways can you say the public, you know, especially those within the creative industry, have engaged with your ministry thus far to ensure that the voices, you know, are being heard and are being addressed? In 1 minute, please, before we go to the last segment.
Stakeholder engagement is key. I've done a number of stakeholder engagements, especially now that I'm delivering some foundation for them. I hope to continue to do stakeholder engagements because I still continue to need their input. I need their input to continue to flesh out policies for specifically with the different subsectors. And partnerships. My 8-point agenda, partnerships, I think is number 4 or 5. It is absolutely key.
Number 4.
Number 4. In order to move forward, we have to have partnerships, because it's partnerships with the public sector that's going to allow us to have not only sustainability, but that's going to allow us to have something that is tangible for, you know, the future legacy of the industry.
All right, many thanks again. Let me use this opportunity to thank you,
you
know, for creating time to be here to do this with us, you know, and of course, constantly lending your voice on issues that affect us all. But before I let you go, there's a last segment of the show where I, as a host, has an opinion. This is the segment that I have an opinion. I know you're familiar with this segment
absolutely.
because, you know, this is your 5th time gracing us on this platform. And the last segment is the trending story. These are stories that bind us as Nigerians. And the first trending story that is catching my attention is that of the Edo State government that declines the peace accord. And let me quickly say this, sometimes when we see the turnout of events in our political landscape, it baffles me as how we practice politics in this side of the world. Looking at the entire build-up, you know, of events into the Edo State gubernatorial election coming forth, you know, when we can see that APC is doing, you know, retaliatory damage in the state, I start to be corrected, but, you know, why should they be using, I don't know, will I say elements of public service like the police force to interfere in a biased manner? Why on earth should Kike, I say this with my full chest, the Minister for FCT be the INEC resident electoral commissioner for the forthcoming election in September 21st election? I'm asking in pain because is it done with his primary service in Abuja? Is he the only person that can actually act on or act as a resident electoral commissioner? Is he from Edo State again? I'm asking in pain. The last time I checked, you know, is from River State. Why all these manipulations on this note? You know, it's right, you know, for Obaseki, the sitting governor, for to decline signing the peace accord until underlying issues are being addressed or solved swiftly. Obaseki has described the arrest of 10 PDP chieftains by APC because they see themselves as, you know, strong opposition that can upturn the dynamics of the election. There's also, or would I say, there's always a heat and attention of off-circle precedents that has given us that direction and time that, you know, we saw how APC channeled their energy and the power to the 2022 election in the states with all sorts of powerhouses flying into the state. So it shouldn't be so, if you ask me. Let's allow the people to make free and fair choice of candidates that they want to govern the states. Both APC, PDP, LP should be championing their merits in the states, not creating bullying session before the real election. You know, I don't know, they're running commentary in my ears, but quickly, before I come to you, ma'am, for your own submission, let me quickly use this opportunity to touch on the second trending story. And the second trending story is that of the flood, you know, in Maduguri and the government intervention. I hope that my people will just give me time to just air my opinion right now, because at the moment I just feel that this natural calamities like this that occurred, you know, it's so painful to see the death of losses in lives and properties and businesses. Initiating, you know, estimates of, you know, in terms of the suggestion that have over 150,000 people from more than 23,000 houses that have been affected, you know, but the authorities, I must ask, they have warned. I believe that they've been true in terms of, you know, how the numbers are close to about 200,000. Over 200 prisoner inmates are squeezed to have zoo animals that have been unleashed into the environment. There are many souls that have been trapped in the flood, and the government that has deployed the military, the volunteers, you know, security agencies to save lives. I must say kudos to the army. You know, the Minister for Interior as well, I think Tunji Ojo, has also pledged that the federal government intensify its support for the people and the Borno states, you know, that have suffered from this banditry, terrorism, and agricultural disputants, you know, over the years. And I observed that the Vice President Shettima, you know, actually visited the state and also entered the flood to see the depth of the damage that have been caused in this state. So National Emergency or Management Agency, that's NEMA, has also joined the concert effort in addressing the impact of natural disasters. So I just feel that Borno is one of those states with largest land area in terms of far north cast. However, the point for consideration in this is that the flood was caused by excess water released from the dam. Didn't we see this coming is another question I'm bringing to fore. have, dam controls have been a major challenges, like I like to use on this platform. I don't like to use the word problem, but major challenges for us in Nigeria. The dams flow down from up north, even caused more damages across the basins down to south into states like Lagos to Oyo, Ogun. We see that every year in, year out. The forecasts have been there on rainfall expectation, addressing this beforehand. Should we have the priority, or should I say the government have not prioritized the people enough? However, we sometimes see our government spending in areas that I feel that there is not priority enough, that are putting the citizen in check in terms of what is expected in terms of them saving the properties and the lives of the people. What are the priorities of the government? I think that is where I want to stop my thought process right now. I don't know, maybe in 1 minute. They are running commentary in my ears right now.
Yeah, I think, for the Edo State situation, we will never, ever have a healthy country if we don't allow people to be voted freely and fairly. And I think every person in Edo State has a right to have their votes cast and to have the security apparatus protect that. So whatever is going to emanate from Edo State, I really want to urge everyone involved to ensure that they allow the people of Edo State to, have their rights to express themselves and vote who they...
Unfortunately, I have to run. I have to say many thanks.
Yeah.
It's been another interesting episode of Real Talk with Kike. Indeed, we had an awesome show today. Courtesy our resourceful guest, Honorable Minister Hannatu Musawa. Many thanks again for coming on the show today. It's been an honor, but on to the next episode next week. Please remain kind to one another and keep safe. Bye now.